Save the Second is a pro-Second Amendment organization. Through good or bad, we're here to help drive and save the NRA from itself and the Second from the infighting that happens among the Second Amendment supporters. Because without the Second, the rest will fall. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Save the Second or their employers. This show offers commentary on the latest news associated with the NRA and Save the Second's endeavor to promote a strong, relevant, effective, and accountable NRA.
Welcome to episode 14 of the Save the Second podcast. Today is Sunday, December 22nd, 2019. Holy smokes, we have 3 more days before Christmas. Oof. In this episode, we'll discuss NRA's Financial Challenges, Wayne LaPierre's interview, the January board meeting, and more. Joining us today are Anthony Garcia, Rob Pincus, and my name is Ron. Anthony, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic, Ron. We have only a few days before Christmas. I am in the process of selling and moving my home, which everything all added together is, shall we say, stressful. However, we're making the best of it.
Holy smokes, man. Yeah, selling and moving during the holidays. Wow. Well done. Mr. Pincus, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I have already started the official Christmas celebration. Toddler Pincus opened up a bunch of Christmas presents this morning before I got on a plane to take my last business trip of the year. I'm now in Salt Lake City, a big meeting here tomorrow, and then I'm headed to Nashville. So yeah, Christmas is upon us. I'm also trying to sell a house. I'm anxiously anticipating the moving of the stuff and resettling. So I understand what you're going through there, Anthony, but obviously good things ahead.
Oh my goodness gracious. I'm so happy to not be trying to sell a house right now. And
facial hair.
Yeah, I did. I was trying to be like you guys. You guys are so cool and I'm usually clean shaven. So I'm like, got some days off of work. I'm going to let it grow out. Here we go. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And the festivities have just started for me. My father-in-law just walked in before the podcast and was like, oh, you need this. And it's a Second Amendment Zippo lighter. Yeah. I mean, I don't smoke,
cool.
But oh my goodness, this sucker's going to come in handy. Let me tell you. Yeah. It's just amazing. I'm dropping stuff. I'm in the Christmas spirit. Merry Christmas to everyone. Now,
Christmas spirit indeed.
Oh, buddy. It's good. My parents are coming in tomorrow. So hosting Christmas here, it's a blast. I've got kids. It's wonderful. Yeah. So I want to start off for any of those watching or listening for the first time. A lot of folks, see some of the things that we post online and they say, oh, they're just bashing the NRA. Well, no, we're not merely bashing. We're calling out problems that are in the NRA, problems that need to be fixed. To state the facts, frankly, is not to despair the future nor indict the past. The prudent heir takes careful inventory of his legacies and gives a faithful accounting to those of whom he owes an obligation of trust. That comes from John F. Kennedy. Now, if you want to go to more of a religious aspect, Proverbs. I'm not a preacher. I'm not trying to preach, but I want to let you know that Proverbs 13:24 says, "Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them." If you apply that to the NRA, whoever doesn't correct the NRA hates the NRA. Okay, you've got to have accountability. The NRA must be accountable, and it cannot be accountable by being unaccountable. We're going to jump right into the stories. We've got a lot of stories to cover. The first one is the NRA's Financial Challenges. Fox Business News had reported this on December 17th. It was originally reported by OpenSecrets.org. The title is "Cash-Strapped NRA Discloses Spending on Foreign Fundraising for First Time." Oh my goodness gracious. Anthony, did you read that article or those articles?
Yeah. So they're fundraising with foreign entities here. Now, the biggest question is why. As far as I know, the Second Amendment is limited to the United States. I mean, I get it. You're trying to find new sources of revenue, but why? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense to me either. Fox Business News actually had a bit in their article that said membership dues fell to the lowest level in 5 years in 2017. That was first reported by the New York Times, a year in which it lost $55 million in income. The Washington Post reported that the group had a $10.8 million shortfall in 2018 as well. Oh my goodness. Is the cash flow just a bottomless pit that they're just throwing money into? Rob, what's going on here?
I mean, for me, the foreign, there's a real fine line and a lot of gray area around that whole foreign sources thing, right? So as a devil's advocate to, Anthony's sort of like, there doesn't make sense. I will say that for example, one of the articles points out, I think it was in the Open Secrets, I'm not sure if it made it into the Fox translation, that Taurus is the largest ally that the NRA has right now in terms of cash donations or money coming in from the manufacturers. Well, in reality, the United States is obviously the biggest revenue source for Taurus as well. So in some cases, when you look at Glock, when you look at HK, when you look at SIG, when you look at Taurus, certainly, it does make a lot of sense that the NRA is getting money from the companies that are very interested in protecting the existence of the U.S. private sector civilian firearms market, because that's where they make most of their money. It's not selling guns to the Brazilian government that Taurus makes their money, right? So it does make sense from that standpoint. However, the much more concerning things that are brought out in these articles are exactly what you just mentioned as far as I'm concerned. It's these issues of these huge shortfalls, $55 million, $10 million, $20 million, whatever the millions of dollars are in terms of not only not making budget, but falling behind previous years' income from all sources. And on the one hand, defund the NRA, right? It's one of the things I've been saying for years. Until there's regime change, until there's structural and systemic and messaging change from the NRA, we should be defunding them. So good for our side. The NRA is feeling the pinch. On the other hand, why are we still seeing this outlandish spending on executive salaries, on golden parachutes, on executive trips and indulgences? That's the concern. So the meat of the story, or the headline of the story, might have been about foreign sources, but I think that the real meat is much deeper in the difference between the amount of money coming in from any source and the amount of money going out to executive pockets.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, that whole thing it seems so ridiculous to me that there's so much of members donating money and paying their dues and then seeing what for it. The return on investment is frankly next to nothing. I believe it was Johnny Baggins this past week on his YouTube channel that the title of his YouTube post was "Where is the NRA?" and he's referencing Virginia, where now there's 101 sanctuaries declared. That's counties plus a few cities in the state of Virginia, largely done by the Virginia Citizens Defense League. I don't believe the NRA has had any sort of help in that particular thing. So, yeah, where's this money going exactly? Is it going to further our rights? Is it going to further our training? Well, that's a perfect segue into another.
Before you get away from that, Ron, real quick, I will say that I've been watching this Virginia situation closely. I lived in Virginia for a long time. Of course, we were just right up there next to Virginia for the 2A rally. It is important to note that this is really a grassroots operation that's happening in Virginia. So I don't think any organization, Virginia Citizens Defense League or the NRA or Second Amendment Foundation or any organization, really deserves any credit for what is happening there. That is American gun owners. And this is really important to our message, I think, over and over and over again, that yes, we want to save the NRA, but we're not called Save the NRA. We're called Save the Second, because this is about what American gun owners can and should be doing. And what we're seeing, those 101 county cities, the sanctuary movement, what I think is going to be an amazing turnout on January 20th in Richmond, Virginia on lobbying day, that is American gun owners. It's not any organization specifically. Although Virginia Citizens Defense League is out there cheerleading it, celebrating it, pushing it, I haven't seen anything from the NRA to the point.
Absolutely. And to me, honestly, more on that, I'm so encouraged by that. I'm so encouraged by the regular Joes that own firearms getting involved. showing up to their town halls, talking with their, legislative representatives. Oh my gosh, that is exceptionally encouraging to me. And I hope that momentum continues. Holy smokes. And yeah, January 20th is going to be amazing. I'm really curious to see how that lobbying day unfolds. But now back to the NRA, of course, we're talking about how they had mismanaged funds, and it's evident in, from two different sources this past week. But earlier on December 5th of this month, the Daily Beast had reported that the NRA's school safety initiative was a front to increase fundraising. Now, this wasn't actually brought to us by the Daily Beast. They didn't insinuate this. This is actually coming from Ackerman McQueen, the former advertising agency for the NRA. And they said, quote, this is coming from the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast says, in an amended counterclaim filed in Texas federal court in November, the NRA's former ad agency, Ackerman McQueen, says that the gun lobby used School Shield as a shell program that it did not intend to meaningfully execute. In other words, they're just trying to rake in the dollars. Yeah, let's talk about that one, especially School Shield, which, to my understanding, it really wasn't pro firearms at all. Rob, you had some insight into that, right?
Yeah, go all the way back. There's a lot of depth and nuance to this story. On the surface, I don't know what the intentions were. I can't speak to, whether it was just a fundraising ploy. I would have thought it was really just a PR ploy. Now, by extension, especially under the Ackerman McQueen, Wayne LaPierre relationship that existed for 20 years, all PR was directly related towards fundraising. So I can certainly follow the logic to where this was just a fundraising campaign. My concern, and what I said from the very beginning about it just being a PR campaign, I literally cringed during the press conference when this was announced, because it really was this feel-good, compromise, wishy-washy, non-Second Amendment supporting gesture towards towards America in general, to say we're doing something. And it was a typical ham-fisted move under the Wayne LaPierre regime. There was no substance to it whatsoever. They had a couple of high-profile people come in and say they were going to help with it. My biggest concern about it, and the reason I say it really wasn't a Second Amendment movement, this wasn't about the right of teachers to be armed. This wasn't about the right of parents to be able to carry firearms onto school property when they're coming and going, if they can be legally armed off school property. This was essentially a trust the government program. It was let's put police officers, let's give extra funding to the sheriff's departments, let's put retired police and military people who go through special training into the school systems or onto school property. And there was some other funding available for things like metal detectors and school hardening, target hardening aspects of it. But first of all, it wasn't pro-Second Amendment. It wasn't NRA. It certainly wasn't grassroots gun owners. Second of all, it was never followed through on. I think something like 2 or 3 schools ever took advantage of the program, ever got any grant money from the program. Other than to say, look, we have this program. The NRA didn't do anything to push it, promote it, or encourage its implementation. Over and over and over again, there were just obvious points of reference for this being a hollow gesture. And let's also not forget that it was during this time, immediately following Sandy Hook, when Wayne LaPierre spent over $50 million, I've heard up to $90 million on private airfare for himself and other executives to make this announcement. So he had to come back to the U.S. from an NRA-funded family vacation in the Bahamas to announce this shill program. So there's a lot going on here 5 years later, 6 years later, that we're talking about, I think, in some very real and important ways. But this was a scam from day one.
I totally agree with that. And I remember vividly seeing, in fact, I still have it on my hard drive, the bill to have a luxury private aircraft go to Nassau, pick up LaPierre, fly him around. Oh, it's painful. Anthony, what do you think on that?
I think Rob is completely right. It was a scam from day one. It was it was announced just for them to say, "Look at us, we're doing something. We're being helpful." Insert the Ralph Wiggum meme. I'm helping. That's exactly what it was. And Now, as far as I can tell, they have given out a couple of grants. There's a couple of bucks here now, but I want to say the gun group. Okay, so I'm reading here from that Daily Beast article. The gun group announced later that year it had given 54 grants totaling over $600,000 to public and private schools in 23 states. So while that may sound like a decent chunk of change, we have to compare and contrast that with the fact that there was over $200,000 spent solely on Wayne's suits. This is actually a very, very small amount of money compared to the amount that the NRA has and the amount that the NRA has wasted on bullshit, when they could have actually turned this into something good. They could have actually done things like funded the FASTER programs. I don't know if you guys have seen FASTER. It trains school staff to help respond to these events. I think it's an awesome program. There's a lot of other things they could have done and actually done some good with this. But instead, they spent a token amount of money. And yes, in this case, $600,000 is a token amount of money. It's not very much. Just to make it look like they did something when they did nothing. So yeah, F them and F their program. They just screwed the members out of money here.
Yeah, and more on that. So you guys mentioned the suits. You guys mentioned the airfare travel, which is in the millions. Don't forget 2018, Wayne LaPierre's $2.2 million paycheck, which $600,000 is just a little over a quarter of what Wayne LaPierre made in 2018, 27%. Really? Yeah. So, I mean, it just looking at that alone, just looking at one man's paycheck and one man's extracurricular bonuses that, were under the table and so on. Yeah. $600,000 is absolutely a travesty. And now, of course, this all revolves around the ongoing lawsuit between Ackerman McQueen and the NRA. And this, oh my gosh, these counterclaims just keep on being amended. There's 3 lawsuits right here. And how many amendments are we at? At least a dozen. And it's only going to be worse. And this amendment had a lot more in it too. What was it? The Susan LaPierre, Wayne LaPierre's wife, she was involved in, what was it? Youth for Tomorrow, which was another group. Yeah. In this article, and I'll put this in the show notes so you guys can go and look at it. The counterclaim makes additional claims about Youth for Tomorrow, a Christian organization where Susan LaPierre was president. The gun group has been scrutinized for its lack of transparency in donations to Youth for Tomorrow before, with a report from the New Yorker and the Trace revealing that over $180,000 in NRA contributions to Youth for Tomorrow went unreported in their tax filings. Wow. I mean, there's more and there's more and there's more, and we can keep going down the rabbit hole, but at what point do you just throw up your hands and say, okay, I've gone enough down the rabbit hole, let's freaking do something? Oh, yeah. We'll get into doing something here in a little bit more, but I tell you what, let's continue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you have the Stinchfield article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming up right now.
There you go.
So Grant Stinchfield, he's the former host, or one of the hosts on NRA TV, one of the former hosts. He claimed in an affidavit filed last week that now defunct NRA TV streaming platform had once had aspirations to be a full-fledged news operation. And now there's a back and forth. Now it looks like Ackerman McQueen will be suing him as well. That actually comes to us from the Daily Beast. And there's another article from Newsweek that is explaining Ackerman McQueen's side. I did not watch Grant Stinchfield very much. I do remember that I was kind of cringed when he came on because outrage was his hobby, or at least it seemed like it was to me. I much preferred watching Julie Golub, with Love at First Shot and stuff like that. But yeah, this is really interesting in this ongoing lawsuit. Rob, you got to tell us more about it.
Yeah, this is one of those pieces of the puzzle to me that is just like so ironic, right? Like Stinchfield was one of the problems with NRA TV. He was part of the rhetoric. He was part of the just pandering to the base and just all the things that were wrong with what Ackerman McQueen was doing with NRA TV. represented right there, right? And there are other people. He's certainly not the only one, but it's not Cam and company, right? It wasn't Julie Golub, as you said. It was part of the problem. Now, what he's basically saying in his statements is, I knew this was a problem. I knew this wasn't really an NRA thing. I was taking the paycheck. I was reading the script. But now that I'm not getting a paycheck and I'm not getting a script, let me jump in here and opine as if this was all terrible and it was all wrong to begin with. And again, you're still part of the problem, but thanks for at least being honest about it now, Stinchfield, because this represents the dysfunction that a lot of us talked about for literally decades. I mean, this whole thing goes back to Wayne being told to fire Ackerman McQueen in the mid 90s, right? 94, yeah. Here we are. But the reason he should have fired them and the reason he should have been removed and the reason that we are where we are now is exactly the kind of thing that Stinchfield's revealing, but also that he played along with and benefited greatly from.
Now, in this ongoing she said, of Ackerman McQueen and NRA, Ackerman McQueen had said that LaPierre was literally calling all the shots. He was the one that was approving, hires, like Dana Loesch, apparently. He was the one that was, giving the thumbs up or thumbs down. At least that's what they're alleging. And in this particular Newsweek article that is mentioning Stinchfield, Newsweek says that Ackerman McQueen told them Tuesday that it would counter allegations from Grant Stinchfield, the former host of the self-titled NRA TV program, with his own, quote, legal action against him. Ackerman claims that Stinchfield, who served as the host from 2016 to July, provided inaccurate information under oath in an affidavit that was filed earlier this month in NRA's federal lawsuit case against the firm. So, inaccurate information under oath. I'm curious what that is. I'm curious how that plays out, but it's all telling me the same thing. Something that I've understood for a long time. This was a dumpster fire and continues to be a dumpster fire. And there is no light at the end of the tunnel in Ackerman McQueen versus the NRA versus Ackerman McQueen. Anthony, what do you think on all of that?
Dude, you pretty much hit it. It's a dumpster fire. It's this very interesting, complicated, and tangled web of BS that happens when one side lies about the other side, and they're so far in bed with each other that they can't untangle it. So what has happened here, in my personal opinion, is that ACMAC realized that they could bribe NRA executives with NRA membership money. That's my personal opinion. And just over time, it became so wrapped up and so twisted. Now we're seeing that all unravel in a public sphere where they're trying to make all of these accusations, but nobody wants to admit what actually happened. They're trying to take it to court. They're trying to say, oh, it's this guy's fault. It's that guy's fault. But nobody actually wants to go ahead and say, hey, we were actually bribing him with members' money. And nobody from the NRA wants to say, yeah, we were actually getting kickbacks. Nobody actually wants to admit that. But now we're seeing this all fall apart as the result of what was actually happening. That's my personal opinion. And that's where this is coming from.
Yeah. Now, this is just showing us a lawsuit in which the NRA is wasting members' dues and donations. We now have to move on to something that's far more critical. And you could say, hey, Ron, what's more critical than our dues and donations being wasted? Well, how about the entire organization being shuttered? The New York Attorney General intensifies investigation into the NRA. This comes from NBC News on December 11th. Quote, the New York Attorney General's office is intensifying the investigation into the National Rifle Association, recently issuing a new wide-ranging subpoena to the gun rights organization that offers hints at where the high-profile probe is moving, a person familiar with the document told NBC News. More subpoenas? Previously we had talked about the 90-plus current and former board members who had been served subpoenas, and I'm sure they've all given depositions. Wayne LaPierre gave his deposition, and now there's more subpoenas coming. Holy smokes. Rob, I understand that probably indictments are next on the list. Now, I don't understand how an attorney general goes about an investigation. I don't understand how they decide who to indict and who not to indict. And it looks like the potential indictments are going to be tax fraud, and fiduciary irresponsibility, or whatever that's called. Can you tell us more about that? Can you explain that?
Well, it looks like there are definitely board members who have exposure here because of the position they were in on various committees and the oversight that they were supposed to have. On one level, there's a theory that every board member is going to be held in some way potentially responsible for having not done what they were supposed to do in terms of overseeing the officers. Now, the quandary for me is, why isn't the board stepping up as a 76-person body and holding the officers who are actually the officers and employees of the NRA who actually did the wrongdoing in almost every case? Why aren't they essentially holding them up as an example of the problem and instead circling the wagons around them? And we're not just talking about Wayne LaPierre. There are other people, obviously, that are on that list, but he's the perfect example. Why are we seeing the executive committee of the NRA circle the wagons around him as a thank you, as a payback, as a we respect you for the work you did in the past? Or is it more nefarious than that? Is it because if he goes down, he knows where all the bodies are buried because he told us to bury him. He asked us to bury him, and therefore we're going down too. And it's almost the only conclusion left, is why let the board get exposed to potential indictments unless you somehow think you can weather this storm through some miracle. And I don't know what that miracle would be at this point, that Wayne never gets indicted, that Woody Phillips, and any of these other people potentially on the list that could get indicted, no one ever gets indicted. And therefore the people on the board also never get brought into court. I just don't see it playing out that way at this point.
No, I mean, there will obviously be indictments. I mean, the New York Attorney General is not a timid person. Miss James is something else, right? Even
aside from the indictments on the personal level, there could be action taken against the standing of the NRA as a corporation or as a nonprofit corporation inside of New York. And honestly, at the end of the day, if Wayne LaPierre goes to jail, maybe he deserves to go to jail. That doesn't hurt the American gun owner at the end of the day. The NRA getting shut down significantly poses a danger to the American gun owner because of where the NRA is positioned right now. And that's why there's this split in the gun community, right? Some people are sort of with us, fix the NRA. This effort, this energy is worth the time. Other people are like, abandon the NRA. Let's get as far away from them as possible because that's a burning ship going down. We need to get on board with somebody else, or better yet, just be a grassroots 110+ million American voting bloc.
Right. And, I agree with you there. I am encouraged by the average, gun owning Joe actually getting involved. I really am. And I hope that becomes more so. I don't want to see people just proxy away their, lobbying efforts or, taking the time to call a representative or something. I don't like relying on anyone else to do what I am supposed to do, personal responsibility, right? On the other hand, the NRA, oh my goodness gracious, I mean, 5 million members, if you can rally those 5 million members to do something, well, that's huge. Now, of course, if you can rally 100 million persons who own firearms, or I don't know, maybe the 170 estimated that own firearms in the United States, I think it's more than that now, that's huge. Still, there's so many people that I've seen that say, let the NRA burn. And that shocks me because they don't get to decide when the NRA burns. They don't get to decide how the NRA burns. Is the NRA going to shutter in 2027 after, who knows how many presidents have looked at the NRA as the lobby or the representative for American gun owners? No, we need to get in and fix the NRA. And that's my personal opinion, of course. We need to fix the NRA so that the American gun owner is better served. Overhauling, man, who looks at a 1989 Ford Bronco and says, wow, we'll just let it rust. No, man, there's so much potential there. Ridiculous amounts of potential if we can just get together, if we can rally and make it work. Now, Anthony, tell me, man, what do you think?
I think you like Ford Broncos.
Oh, man.
It was the 80s. I mean, a 95, a 69, but you 89? Really?
Right.
Hey, man.
100 horsepower.
Yeah, that was just, it's sentimental. It's sentimental. I'm sorry. Continue, Anthony.
It's sentimental.
Your guess is as to why they were roomy.
Yeah, mom and dad got one. That was the first new car that I ever got to ride in, as a kid. So I mean, it's a big
There had to be a story there.
You're right.
Yeah, it was either first car or first girlfriend, something like that. All right.
Kind of both. Sorry.
So with the New York Attorney General thing here, yeah, that's not good, because that, as we've talked about before, can lead to the actual dissolution of the NRA. I do think, Rob, you're probably right. At some point, I think probably every current and former board member is going to either A, be held accountable in some fashion, or B, at least have to show up in court and prove that they try to do their fiduciary duty. Now, some of them, notably some of the ones who that resigned, I think did try to do their fiduciary duties. They certainly did, and they resigned when they felt they couldn't do them. So I mean, hopefully they wouldn't be held liable, but I'm sure some of them will be. I don't think this is going to go away. I think it's only going to get worse. I mean, the New York AG has no love lost for the Second Amendment community, like none of New York does. Yeah, it's only going to intensify and get worse. And you're right, Rob. The dissolution of the NRA would absolutely be it would be a terrible blow for firearms rights in general in this country, and that's why we're here. That's why we are trying to save it. We're trying to get rid of the leadership and put decent leadership in there through our reform measures. And yeah, that's why we need to do it.
And continuing on this vein of the New York Attorney General intensifying its investigation into the NRA, Outdoor Wire had an article earlier this week that had an interesting quote in it. It said, the questions from the subpoenas and depositions and whatnot seem to frame a simple theme. Despite claims otherwise, the 76-member board, with a few exceptions, were both ignorant and powerless. And those few exceptions followed and continue to follow the marching orders issued by Wayne LaPierre. Woo! I mean, that's a heck of a quote. If they're placing all of that blame on Wayne LaPierre and the executives, it goes back to Rob's point. Why doesn't the board just say, okay, nope, we're not going down with the ship. Executives, you're out of here. Well, Rob, you hit it on the head, and I don't know exactly why the NRA board continues to be, well, in many cases, at least on the executive committee, cheerleaders or worshipers, Wayne LaPierre worshipers. I guess we're going to find out come January 11th. We'll get into that a little bit more in just a second on the NRA board meeting, but let's wrap up the final story talking about the weirdest interview I think I've ever read, and that's Wayne LaPierre's New York Times interview. This comes from the New York Times on December 18th. The title is Inside Wayne LaPierre's Battle for the NRA, How an Internal Power Struggle, a New York State investigation and accusations of fraud and betrayal on all sides have left the longtime leader of the gun rights organization reeling. Just reading the title and the subtitle, all I can think of is, you made your bed, you're going to sleep in it. It's that simple. Rob, did you read this particular interview?
I did. It was hard because it's framed up to paint, Wayne as a victim. And in some ways I almost feel, okay, yeah, you were like a victim of your own naivete maybe in the 90s, but for the last 30 years, no, I can't give you that pass, man. So get out of the way. People have been telling you to get out of the way for years. People have been asking you to get out of the way probably for a decade. People have been hinting in the community that it's time for you to get out of the way for many, many, many years. So at the end of the day, it's like, do I feel bad for you at all? No. Should I feel bad for you at all? No. Should I feel bad for the NRA as an organization? No. This is why we're not just throwing money and saying, we got your back, guys. We're trying to change things to include the leadership. And the article is there have been all kinds of, stories and innuendos and whispers about the relationship now between the New York Times writer Hakeem and William Brewer, the lawyer and consigliere, literally and figuratively, apparently, to Wayne now. It's such a spin piece, and just put it in the New York Times of all places. Like, I mean, if that article had been written in Guns and Ammo, it would probably be compelling to gun owners. But I think American gun owners see through that ridiculous tripe at this point, especially coming from that source. And Guns and Ammo isn't writing that article, by the way. Outdoor Wire is not printing that article. Ammo Land's not printing that article. There's no one who knows what's going on in this community that's printing that article at this time, and that's really, really telling.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw in the article that just absolutely shocked me, Wayne LaPierre started to comment about the convicted Russian spy, Maria Butina. He says, "My attitude was stay away from her." But he did not aggressively intervene, even as Butina coordinated a 2015 NRA trip to Moscow. Quote, this is LaPierre saying, quote, "I saw this itinerary that somebody had. It's got all of these meetings with this guy. What are they called? Urjark and so on, deputy so-and-so." And I'm like, you guys are all nuts. Are you crazy? That's what Wayne LaPierre said, end quote. But the trip, in which several donors and board members, including a former and future NRA president, they all met with Vladimir Putin and went forward nonetheless. So LaPierre claims that he was saying that this was crazy and did nothing. Okay? Did nothing. He's the CEO / VP of the organization, and he didn't do anything here. But when Oliver North started talking stuff about him, he did something against Oliver North. Like this reeks of incompetence to me, or at least trying to spin the story in a favorable light for Wayne LaPierre. That's just me. Anthony, what do you think?
So I got my hands on an email that was sent out to the board, and I'm sure some other people. Let me read this for you. This came from their media or their public affairs people. And this tells you pretty much how they see the New York Times article. It says, "Dear board, I wanted to make you aware of some media reporting regarding the NRA. The New York Times Magazine today reports about the various lawsuits and investigations being successfully managed by the association." Successfully managed. "See the attached article inside Wayne LaPierre's Battle for the NRA, which will appear in Sunday's print edition of the magazine. Several months ago, we were approached by New York Times Pulitzer Prize winning reporter Danny Hakim regarding his pursuit of an in-depth look into the myriad of important issues. I give Wayne credit for using the opportunity to correct the record on many fronts, communicate with key stakeholders, and underscore our commitment to the principled path on behalf of the NRA. Wayne participated in an expansive interview with Hakim, following our outside counsel, Bill Brewer, having done the same. We knew that this story would include comments from NRA's adversaries, but we believe this article presents our viewpoint on many issues and directly challenges the position of regulators, failed vendors, and disgraced advisors aligned against the association. Our decision to engage in the media process resulted in an article which explains our positions on legal, financial, and regulatory issues, and it reveals the motivation between the New York AG's pursuit of the NRA and recognizes the commitment of the association to stand up to politically motivated attacks from any government official." And then it goes on to talk about how Wayne is apparently God. So this is from this is an internal email because that I wanted to read for you, because it just underscores the fact that yes, Danny Hakim is indeed one of their mouthpieces. They're using New York Times as one of their mouthpieces. This article was propaganda. This is not, I do not believe this article is any way, shape, or form objective. And that proves it right there, and that they're championing this article and they're talking about it internally. So, yeah. There's my opinion. They said it for me.
If this propaganda, which I'm certain it is, really, especially after listening to that email, if it is, it didn't do him any favors. It did LaPierre absolutely the opposite of favors. For example, here's a quote from Wayne LaPierre in this article. He says, and this is in regards to the ongoing internal struggle that's resulted in the lawsuit against Ackerman McQueen and Oliver North. Wayne LaPierre said, "If I lose every friend, I'm prepared to do it." That's a dictatorship. No, Wayne LaPierre should say, if it suits the members of the NRA, I'll lose all my friends. That's what it should be. But he's egotistical. I don't know. Is that megalomania? If I lose every friend, I'm prepared to do it?
I don't know what to call that.
Right? And by the way, the Truth About Guns noticed how odd this particular interview was, and they have some very interesting things. In fact, they quote David Dell'Aquila, which I could not agree more with what he said. And this is the Truth About Guns saying, "Why would the Times agree to a relatively benign portrayal of someone the paper and its readers clearly revile? In Dell'Aquila's view, it's better for those who hate the NRA and the causes it supports to keep LaPierre right where he is." Ooh, buddy, I think David's right on the money there. I mean, if LaPierre is completely ineffective, which I believe he is, then any anti-gunner in the world wants him to stick around. Now, that's my take. I agree with David Dell'Aquila. Rob, I understand you're going to have to wrap it up and get out of here, man. Do you want to give us your thoughts on that, and then any final thoughts before you get on out?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the thing, right? I've said for a long time that the caricature that the NRA, through Wayne LaPierre and through the Ackerman McQueen, through NRA TV, through Stinchfield, through a lot of the things we've talked about, the caricature of the American gun owner and the attitude of the American gun owner, that Brady campaign or Moms Demand Action or any of these are allowed to get away with sort of rebutting because of the way Wayne behaves, because of the talking points, because of the rhetoric, because of the fear mongering, because of the pandering, because of the crazy talk that has come out of NRA and NRA TV and Ackerman McQueen for so long. We look like idiots, and they're definitely served the purposes of those who have an anti-gun agenda in the U.S. And I'm not talking about reasonable gun control. I'm not talking about, promoting training and responsibility. I'm talking about people who want to take away all guns, people who would do away with the Second Amendment. Their cause is served by this dysfunction at the NRA and by Wayne LaPierre as the figurehead of American gun owner leadership, which he certainly hasn't been for a long time. And I'll just circle back to the number of 5 million as the representation of what the NRA has on their best day as memberships is still less than 5%, less than 4%, I think, at this point, of American gun owners. So the NRA has been ineffective. Wayne LaPierre has been ineffective, but the pretense that he has been effective and that he is the spokesperson for all gun owners definitely serves the cause against us, definitely serves the other side. So that's why I know you guys are going to talk about January 11th. January 11th is incredibly important. Don't let me be the only one of those 5 million claimed members that is there at the beginning of the meetings week in Tyson's Corner again, like happened in September. You guys showed up. Lots of people showed up. Obviously, that was important. Those of you who were there, everyone, and not just guys, there were a couple of female members there as well. All of you who showed up are incredibly important. Please be there the entire week. We need hundreds, if not thousands, of NRA members to be in Tyson's Corner the week leading up to, and of course on January 11th for the board meeting, to really let the board know that we do care, because honestly, they don't want us there. They don't want the members involved. They don't want the members to have a say, and the work that we're doing through our petition drives and by showing up is rattling their cages, and that's what's going to be important in moving forward.
I absolutely 100% agree, Rob, and I am so sorry that you were the sole man at a few of those committee meetings, this past September. I'm going to be there beside you, brother. You're awesome.
Listen, you guys have a great holiday. Everybody out there who supports Save the Second, supports American gun owners and responsible gun ownership, thank you very much. Happy holidays, and I'm out for now.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Rob. See you, buddy.
Have a good one, bud.
Yeah, so heck, we could probably go into the Truth About Guns observations on this Wayne LaPierre interview a little bit more, but forget it. We understand the problems in our NRA. We can talk about those problems all day long, and unfortunately, we have to, in many cases, continually bring up these problems because there are so many NRA members who are completely oblivious. They don't know. They don't know where to find information. And when they do find it, a lot of times they're in shock. I mean, for many years, many of us have defended the NRA. And so when we come to the realization that there's something wrong inside the NRA, well, that conflicts with what we've been saying for the past how many years, right? So we question it. We think, oh, this can't be real. This has got to be fake news. This has to be something else. Unfortunately, it's the truth. There's a lot of problems in our NRA. Now, I don't want to focus on the problems. I do have to educate people on the problems because in order to have a solution, there has to be a problem. We can't offer solutions if there's no problems. That's ridiculous. So we know some of the problems. We have some solutions. One of the solutions that we've been going through is the term limit petition. We previously had an attendance petition. And by the way, these are bylaw amendment petitions that we're encouraging members to help us out with. Now, in both the attendance for NRA Board of Directors and term limits for NRA Board of Directors, and both of these petition drives, they're wrapped up now. And now it's up to the NRA Board of Directors to decide what they want to do with it. Anthony, we got all of the term limit petitions sent out, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I personally sent them overnight, registered mail to the NRA, and we did get more than the required amount. So we should see that in the next board meeting, January 11th. Now, as to whether they will do anything with it or not, that's up to them. And of course, if they choose to ignore it the same way they ignored the last one, we have yet another option, which will come after that. And that is, of course, putting these two petitions, the attendance and term limits, directly onto the members' ballot for 2021. It will not be on the members' ballot for next year. It will be on the ballot for 2021. And we can do that. And it's going to be difficult. It's an arduous task. However, I believe we can do it. So yeah, that's where we're at with the term limit petitions. Thank you everybody that sent those in. Thank you to those of you that also sent check donations. I appreciate that. We waited to get all of the envelopes together, make sure I had all the checks, and I will deposit them all at once. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, those donations are ridiculously humbling for me. Of course, those donations help make petition drives possible. And oh my goodness, the arduous task of trying to put that on the NRA members' ballot is going to be something that is going to require a lot of advertising. It's going to require a lot of manpower. It's going to require a lot of effort. Now, I hope we don't get to that point. I hope the NRA Board of Directors steps up to the plate and takes care of business. We're talking about the NRA Board of Directors meeting January 11th. That's going to be in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Now, there are committee meetings happening during that week. January 11th is a Saturday. I believe the first of the board meetings is going to start on a Tuesday. Now, unfortunately, we aren't given an itinerary of these committee meetings. In many cases, if you decide to come and join us, which I hope you do, I think you're going to find that, well, we're as lost as you are. We're going to be asking questions. Where do we go? What are these meetings? Where can we be a part of this discussion and whatnot? If you're an NRA member, you have a right to attend the NRA board meetings. You have a right to attend the committee meetings. Now, as we found out, of course, in September, they can and will go into executive session. In executive session, you can't stick in there. And boy, they're going to do that. And they're going to hope that there's not many of us that show up because, well, they just want to go under the radar and sing Kumbaya, LaPierre's praises, and so on. But folks, I'm telling you, if we can show up there in force, holy smokes, we can be a part of the change that we need. And we can do it sooner than waiting to 2021 to put some of these petitions on the ballot for the NRA members to vote on. Anthony, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think this board meeting is on January 11th?
1 to 10 with let's see, with 10 being, we'll say, the members meeting in an NRAM. I would say it's like a 7. It's pretty dang important. It's not as important as the annual meeting, the members meeting, but it's pretty dang important.
Ooh.
So
Well,
if you can, you should come.
well, Anthony, why would you say the annual meeting is a 10?
I'm glad you asked, because at that meeting, members actually have our own time in which to speak and actually affect the organization. Now it's very interesting. I'm sure you can find a number of videos if you want to look online, but there is actually a lot members can do at that meeting. And if you want to see some things passed, some things changed, as long as we all show up and we all get involved, we actually can do that as members. It's a little bit involved. It's a little bit in depth. We're going to have some like planning and strategy meetings prior to it. It's going to be pretty fun, pretty cool. We need a lot of people to come to that. If you can only choose one event to come to, Nashville in April or the January meeting, hey, I get it. You got to take time off work. If you can only choose one of them, come in April. But if you can come to both, the board meeting is very important to come to.
Absolutely. And especially if the NRA board, I mean, if they wake up and they take matters into their own hands, it's more important for you to be, at the Virginia board meeting so that you can tell those board members your thoughts. Now, we definitely need people to show up at the annual meeting. And yeah, history lesson for you real fast. Have any of you ever heard of the Cincinnati Revolt? If you haven't, you should Google that. That's when the NRA fundamentally changed overnight at a members meeting. Yeah, you should go check that out. I don't necessarily anticipate that happening at this members meeting, but it has potential to, especially if things continue on this downward spiral with the NRA ripping apart at the seams. The members meeting is going to be, the Cincinnati Revolt times 2.0.
Oh, dude, this members meeting is it's gonna make Jerry Springer look very, very tame.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to incite violence. No, we're not. We're not inciting violence. I guarantee you there will be a lot of people that have had enough of the NRA board not listening to its members, and they're going to not only preach that and exclaim that, they're going to put resolutions in front of the members to be voted upon right then and there. Yeah, there's a YouTube video from last year of that very thing happening. It almost happened. And oh my gosh, if we have thousands of people show up that are concerned about their NRA, it will change, and it will change overnight at the members meeting. Now, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to interject here. There's a question in our Facebook stream.
I'm so sorry. I've been negating that.
Yeah. Josh asks, you guys know on what basis they can send a meeting into executive session? The basis is whenever they want to do so. Looking through transcripts of previous board meetings, they typically send both every committee meeting and the actual board meeting almost every time into executive session. They'll take attendance, maybe bring up a couple of things that are rather ancillary. On the last one, they brought up our petition, for example, because they knew people were going to want to see that. And then they'll go into executive session. And anything of any substance to the actual members in almost every committee and actual board meeting is hidden behind executive session.
That's absolutely right, which is why the members meeting is so much more important, because we can literally be involved. If the members meeting goes into executive session, well, guess what? It's the members meeting. The members get to stay. Okay. So, yeah, think about that. Now, that said, again, guys, it can change. History has shown us. I believe that the Cincinnati Revolt was in 1979. Go look that up. Now, it can change. There was a similar revolt in the 90s. Jeff Knox can tell you all about that. In fact, his father wrote a book on it. Or actually, I think Neil Knox had written the book on that. Yeah, go read that. Go check it out. It can change. It will change, but it will only change if you get you and all your buddies involved. You can't just sit around on the couch. And speaking of that, our 76 and 76 campaign is ongoing. It's about to wrap up with the January board meeting. The 76 is a campaign for you to contact all of your 76 board of directors, NRA board of directors, before the meeting. And that's coming to a conclusion very soon. If you haven't sent any letters to the NRA board of directors, you need to. A lot of folks get the solicitation call, and say, well, I'm not giving one more cent until LaPierre is gone. Hey, that's great. Tell it to them. But that solicitation call is just that. It's a company that only does solicitations. They're a call center. They don't relay your complaints to the NRA board of directors. In many cases, the NRA board of directors is completely oblivious to the vast amount of members who are fed up. So by contacting your NRA board of directors, you're able to make your voice heard. 76 and 76, contact all of your NRA board of directors. If you didn't get the address to what will be the board meeting in January, the NRA Board of Directors meeting January 11th, with committee meetings happening earlier that week. That is at the Hyatt Regency. The Hyatt Regency's address is 7901 Tyson's 1 Place. I believe that's Place. I just copied this off of Google. 7091 Tyson's 1 Place, Tysons, Virginia, zip code 22102. If you can be there, please be there. The NRA annual meeting and members meeting will be in Nashville in April. We already have that event up on our Facebook. You can go check out that event and get the dates. I believe that's April 17th, 14th through 17th. Don't quote me on that, but of course you can go see. Oh my goodness gracious. Anthony, we've covered a lot. We're at 56 minutes. I'm surprised we got through all of those stories, and we have a few minutes left before the hour. Anthony, please give us your final thoughts.
My final thoughts I would like to leave everybody with. I think it's in the New York Times article. I might be wrong, but it says specifically, it talks about Wayne LaPierre's desk and that he has like some notepads on his desk because, quote, Wayne LaPierre does not use a computer, end quote. Why does he not use a computer? That's all I want to leave you with. I'm sorry. I find that incredible.
It's so
why don't
baffling.
you use a computer? It's backwards. Yes.
I mean, I don't know. Time travel, maybe.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. He's probably got one of those typewriters in there. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah. Well, that explains why a lot of the board of directors don't even have emails. Ronald Smites, I'm mispronouncing his last name, prior president, 2009 to 2011. Yeah, he's deleted all of his previous email addresses, we found out. Oh my goodness gracious. Folks, we need a strong, relevant, effective, and accountable NRA. We need your help in order to make that work. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. You can follow us, of course, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, Twitter. Our podcast can be found on your favorite podcast app. Of course, our website is where you can find a lot more information. Oh my goodness, tons of information. SaveThe2A.org. That's SaveThe2A.org. I'm going to try to get a few more podcasts in this week, more interviews than anything. So just keep in mind there. This few days off is going to be kind of nice. Nick Dooley is the voice over the introduction. He is the owner and operator of Dooley Defense in Pierre, South Dakota. He is an amazing man. I love him to death. All of us here at Save the Second are volunteers. Anthony Garcia, the president right there, is a volunteer. An amazing guy. Tell you, anybody that's been volunteering with us is just A-okay in my book. They are a diamond in the rough, and I'm trying to grow a beard just so I can look like them because they're amazing. Oh, I love you guys so much. And thank you for all of those of you who have donated to us. That's, like I said earlier, it's humbling. It's amazing. And thanks to your generosities, we can definitely get motivated, get members rallying to reform our NRA. Now, our name is Save the Second, right? So, hey, listen to this. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And from all of us here at Save the Second, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.